All right, welcome back. It's been a few weeks now. I think I better get this show on the road. I like to get right to business. I don't have nothing to sell you, so you don't have to worry about any of that. But what I do want to show you today is the beginning of an easy language series. Today we'll probably keep it yeah, fairly simple and maybe even quick, or we can get to two of them and maybe get a little further. So let's jump right in. What you're seeing here is a little different than my previous episodes. The layout's very similar. We've got the chart trader on because it's easy to get out of a position, and we'll get into that probably in videos to follow. But I wanted to get started on this easy language um, because it's one of the benefits of trading with TradeStation. And if you are trading with TradeStation, you certainly should learn how to use it to your advantage. So what we got on the chart right now, it's after hour. Actually, it's after hours. Um, this was ARWR recent winner, recent gainer. And if we take a look, you can see what I have on the chart is just really some Bollinger Bands doing what they often do, getting tighter as the price starts ranging and going sideways. And then you know you're either going to have something happen one way or the other. And with penny stocks, it's usually on the downside. But hey, I favor shorting, so you can't fault me too much. Now, we want to know what we can do to perhaps make our own Bollinger Bands. Now, this is something I've done on multiple platforms, so it shouldn't be a problem here. First thing we're going to do is right click. Going to go to Studies. And then we can either turn it on or off. These are a multitude of different ones I have here. Or we can go to Edit Studies. I think that's what we'll do here. This nice little screen pops up. We go to the one we want, which in this case is the BBs by TFB. That's me. And we're going to edit easy language. Alright, so first thing first, don't let this overwhelm you in any way, shape, or form. And I don't just say that to make sure you didn't just pass out, but I say it to let you know that what we're going to do is break most of this down. And really come to show you the average amount of code for an indicator. We're gonna go by line count. That's what I often do. That's what I did when I first started programming back in the day with Visual Basic, probably about 20 years ago. So I'm gonna set you off straight. We're gonna do that first. In fact, here you have line number 1. It's a search tag they throw in. I hardly even mess with these. A lot of times I just take them right out, which we can do. Not a problem. If you can't find this when you're searching for it on your computer, you're already in trouble, right? Because you're the one that named it. You're going to know where it is. You're going to know what it's called. And we're going to go over a way to make everything rise to the top of the list too for you. Alright, so let's scroll all the way to the bottom. Almost like, oh, what is he doing? He's just passing all the code. One of the things I like to do, I don't even add this usually, unless I just copied it and pasted it in there. But lately I haven't really been doing that. 78 LOC with alert. What does that mean? For me, that means that's how many lines of code it was at one point. I work hard to make as few lines as possible. A lot of people don't even discuss this. They don't even talk about it. It's not even in their mindset. But one of the reasons I do that is it kind of helped me in the beginning because it was overwhelming. I think one of the first things I did is I took a video game, decompiled it so I could see all the code, and was overwhelmed by just how much there was. I thought, man, there has to be a way to really manage this. So one of the first things I did was just started counting the lines and seeing how I could change that line count based on some of the things I changed. Yes, I hacked a game, okay? Get over it. So with this alert, it's just at 73, and after our little note here, 75 lines of code. But little note here, how did I add a little note? Well, the funny thing is, every programming language has a way to add notes into the code. Here you can see an example where we just put 2 slashes at the beginning, make sure they're the correct direction. And that's going to do 1 line so you don't have to end it. In other words, you don't have to put another 2 lines to say you're done. Okay? So tip number 1, when making your own code or editing a code that someone else has made to make it your own, and modifying code is perfectly legal. You just have to do it within certain limitations. You have to understand that that was somebody's property, and you have to either give respect to them adding their name on it, or you'd have to look at how that particular code was made and what their rules are. Basically, I don't know of anyone that's ever got sued for changing code or anything of the sort, but in theory it could be done if it was just a mass misrepresentation of the original author. Getting back to this though, you're free to put these lines in your own comments anywhere you please. If I wanted to copy this right now and wanted to put it on every single line, I could do that and I would be fine. The code would run, there would be no problem, and everybody would live another day. Obviously you don't want to do that everywhere. You're going to confuse yourself, and later on you're going to be like, what in the world was I thinking? So you want to try to put those comments where they apply, where they're going to be of most good to you later on. And that certainly isn't all over the screen. Now, one more here. But Jesse, I'm looking at all this other stuff and it's just confusing the living daylights out of me. Well, like I said, first thing at first, it's like, how do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time, right? And that's exactly what we're going to do. And you're going to have some pretty awesome elephants by the time we're done. Okay, I don't want to take that metaphor any further, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. And I don't mean to make a joke out of all this, but let's be real. Coding oftentimes can get mundane. And when you have someone explain it who is also mundane, I don't know about you, but it puts me to sleep half the time. So hopefully at least one of you gets through this without falling asleep. You now know how to make code notes. But what if you wanted to make a big long note and you didn't want it to just stretch out to the right for a mile? Well, then that's when we have these brackets here. With easy language, you can make multi-line notes without much of an issue. If I go ahead and keep hitting return on this, notice how that bracket's still green. Anything I write in here is a note. So, buy milk. I like pie. These are all notes. I like pear. Those are all notes that can be placed within those brackets. Not an issue. Now, sometimes that can be confusing because in other code, people get used to like C#, C++, and all the C languages. That's actually code within those brackets. But in the case of easy language, that's how you do a multi-line note to self. Now, the computer doesn't run notes. That's why you can put them anywhere without causing much of an issue. The only way you'd cause an issue is if you accidentally, bumped into something else when you were putting your note in. Then you just trim that line. The code's going to stop here going error, 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 error. I got a problem. So we don't want that. And this is all just syntax. Syntax is those things that we add to a language in order to get them to be processed line by line. I could give you many examples of just language in general. Latin was spoken by many different people, but I guess I shouldn't go too far on that tangent. What I should do, however, is go back to the top. You know how to make single line notes, and you know how to make multi-line notes. And these could really stretch on for 100 lines if you really had to write that much. Alright, so back to this particular indicator, right? You can also change the color of different values within your code. Something in quotation mark shows up yellow because I selected it as yellow. I do this, if you code in anything else, you try to keep all that the same. So the way I do C# and Visual Basic in Java is the way I do this. Alright, Bollinger Bands, inputs. I don't know if this was the best one to choose right off the bat, but what we're going to do is go over it bit by bit, and then we're going to show it to you as we maybe make some changes even. all these inputs, which are the first things you're going to do, is all your inputs, all your numbers, all your true or falses, which is what a Boolean is, true or false. Double is a type of number. Integer is as well. You can kind of guess to some of it, but I don't want you having to guess. Integers is going to be different in different codes. In this case, it's just solid numbers. Double oftentimes is going to be a decimal point with two numbers after. And look all these up. This is the next thing I'm going to show you. Right click, definition of double. Don't take my word for any of this. I do so much coding. A lot of the times I'm correcting myself mid-video and I have to make another video just because I corrected myself so much. Now, you're going to get in the habit of using certain things after a while, and you're not going to need the dictionary. But at least this way, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they're going to give you an excellent definition and a good example as well. So in this case, I was going to say, where's the good example? Variable double, and they called it my variable 1. This is a terrible example. Man, most of the time we're going to set our variables in the very beginning to 0. I'll show you how we'll do that as well. You can't just right click on anything, by the way. Candle price, right click, definition of candle price. Giving you all kinds of stuff here, right? What you are going to be able to right click is the things that are highlighted in whatever color you selected. I believe it does start off as blue. I had to change all mine because it was getting to my eyes after a while. Another reason I don't make many videos anymore. Alright, I feel like we're going to get off on too much of a tangent here. So I'm going to tell you, we start with our inputs and however we want them to be. Everything is going to be in here. We have variables. We now have to take some of those numbers that we're going to end up using for mathematical calculations and what have you. We have to go ahead and declare them first. Now, you would think that a Bollinger Band code under 75 lines is going to be the easiest thing you've ever done. And for the most part, it is. The hardest part is trying to explain what all of these are going to do, since I didn't make this code completely. Let's go through it. Candle price is going to be on the close in this case. That's what the C is for. And you can write close in easy language as well. It means the very same thing. It's just easy to write C. It also takes less space when they list it up here. See how it just says C? See how it says 20, 2, -2, and 0. These are your main variables. These are your inputs that the user can change. That's what an input is, basically. So they could change this to the high, the low, close, or the open. They can change this, although we know Bollinger Bands are really a 20 EMA. So I left it at 20. Your standard deviation in this case is 2 on the upside and -2 for the downside. So that's your top band and your bottom band. We don't want any displacement, but they have the option to, use it if you want to. I've seen some people displace their Bollinger Bands. I never did understand it myself. Now, color %B, they're setting it to true. It's a Boolean, and again, a Boolean can be either true or false. Why is that important? Display name. Oh, by the way, these are also going to show up in the input dialog. I'm definitely going to show you that. Why don't I just show you right now if we can get it with all these windows open. Again, go to Studies, go to Enable Disable. Bollinger Bands is what we're looking for, so actually let's go to Edit, and instead of Edit Easy Language, let's customize. This is your input dialog. Inputs. There you see the C, the 20, the 2, the -2, the 0 for displacement. True on the color %B, and we're going to get to that in a second. And then all your different associated colors. Okay. Now, we don't have all these lines shown right now on ours, but This gives you an idea of what it is that we're doing in the code. Now, let's see if we can get, oh man, I gotta redo some of this. Let's get some details here that make more sense as well. I definitely recommend getting in here, looking around all your menus if you're still new to TradeStation. You're gonna get so used to them after a while. But for the first few months, it is gonna be kind of odd. How did I get that again? And I've sent so many suggestions to TradeStation, it's ridiculous. They're probably tired of me, but they still treat me well, so that's good. Because I would like to make these just tabs on the top, kind of similar to the Windows style. There's so much you can do. So now that we've gone over the input screen, let's close this out, bring our window back. These are the inputs that we just saw. Now, with Bollinger Band, some of this stuff you don't necessarily need, but you're trying to give the user options for color, for displacement, for your standard deviations, and for your length of the EMA that is in the center, which is what everything's based on. If you had a 10 EMA, it'd be a much faster paced one coming down here, coming back up here, and it would be based on the center line, which both of these, the top and bottom line, are based on. You don't need to know all the math a lot of the times. This example is based off of one that TradeStation gives you, and if we go to File and Open, we're going to find all kinds of files that we can actually look into and see how they did everything. Now, that's only going to help you so much because you're going to want to understand more of it, and that's what I'm trying to help you with. I think the first video I do on this very video, is going to be the most difficult. Just to see, I don't get much feedback, so if you guys have any questions, by all means, you can. Man, I probably said 2 or 3 things wrong. I'm probably stuttering. The point, though, is to get you in here, get you familiar with things. Whether we get to the end of the Bollinger Bands even or not is irrelevant. The math behind it is not that bad. Let's go ahead and read this multi-line note. If indicator not on a chart, example radar screen, you can add these to radar screen. Then set plot %b to true to indicate that the %b value is to be plotted. This value is not plotted on the chart since it is on a different scale than the bands in the 20 EMA. And that's something I can approach later on as well. Sometimes you will have something you don't want to plot on the chart, and you may want it separate or not plotted at all. Alright, a lot of this is basic programming, but we're going to just take it one step at a time. They didn't even have to do it exactly like this, but they did. Once begin in a chart, get app info, AI application type equals C chart, end. And they're just basically doing what they described right here. And don't worry about that so much. We're going to get into the math side of it, and then a couple if-then statements, and we're mostly done. So average equals average FC, which is a built-in function, if you will, that is already going to handle the math for us. It just needs 2 variables. It needs to know the candle price and the length. Well, we set the length to 20 already, so that's imagine a 20 right there. It's already been set. Same with that. Candle price, that's the close. Okay, and that's basically how you do an average. Now, they do a lot of their averages in a very similar fashion, so perhaps in this video or the next we can go over moving averages and how easy it is to plot those. Standard deviation, or SDEV in this case. They already assigned this variable to 0. Now they're going to give it a value. So the standard dev is a calculation they already have. Let's right click this one since we didn't do the last one. Alright, take a look. So they're already doing this crazy math for you. You may think, well, hey, I got to do all this myself. How am I going to do all this? You don't. It's already built in to easy language. And that's going to make your life so much easier. Not just for this, but for so many different functions, if you will. Okay? So you don't have to worry about that part. So just know they're finding the standard deviation based on the close, based off that 20 and the number 1. We can find out exactly what those three numbers mean if you like. First is the price, like we said. It's going to be the close in this case, the closing price of that particular candle. The length is going to be 20. It's the number of bars. And the data type, it says it's got a 1 or a 2, which is population or sample. Don't make it any harder than that. A standard deviation function calculates a standard deviation of values, population or sample. And most of the time I've seen population, I don't even remember where a sample would be used. Just going to be real with you. Alright, it's doing the math for the average, it's doing the math for the standard deviation. Cool. I don't have to do any of that. Upper band, what is that? So that's our upper line. That's going to be the average, which is the 20, plus the number of devs up times the standard deviation. Okay, so number of devs up is 2 deviations up and 2 down. So it's already doing that math for you too. Well, dang. Cool. Now, let's get these things plotted somehow, right? So if the displacement is 0, or the current bar is greater than the absolute value of 0, in other words, a lot of times they're throwing code in like this to make sure you're not like starting it late or early. You want to start this as soon as you can. Okay? And when the displacement is 0, you can easily do that. If you've displaced it, well then maybe I don't know, you got things moved to the left, too far, to the right. That's why I don't mess with all that. Then begin plotting. This is a plot statement in easy language. And plot statements are just that. If you imagine writing on a chart yourself, every single line you draw is a plot. And so with TradeStation, we use them all the time. You do have to number them. Okay, so they are generally sequential, but if I made the next one for plot 45, it would still work. Okay, what you can't do is make 2 number 3s, 2 number 2s, 2 number 1s, what have you. And so with that is the ability to have lines just about everywhere. We're going to plot the upper band, and this is where that displacement value would come in, by the way. Again, you can take this out completely and it's still going to work. You'll just have plot 1 and then go in straight. Now in order to do a plot, let's talk about that for a second. You need this open. I call everything brackets. My goodness, now I'm having a brain seizure here. And then you're going to have a comma in between values most of the time. Now what they did is they went ahead and set the plot color outside of it. So they made number 1 green. They're saying plot number 1. So this is your plot number and this is your color. I say, Jesse, I'm not going to remember any of this. Okay, what I do want you to remember is right click, definition of plot. Get used to doing this for the first few months. This may look like a lot here even, but it's giving you different examples, and one of those examples is that right there. But they're going to give you, this is incorrect. This is actually correct. And you see how they can put the color in there. You don't have to put set plot color afterwards. Again, I think they're just doing stuff just to be difficult. Now, another thing we need to know, and we need to go over for this one in particular, is the first thing is going to be the name, or what it is you're plotting specifically. The name is going to be in parentheses. The color, you don't have to put the word default. They say that's for future use, I believe. And then you're going to have this 2 for your thickness. And that's something that they really didn't do here. So what that tells you is there's more than one way to skin a plot. You can do this differently. So take the example you have and build on it. or right click and try some of these out. You know, now this is a variable that we created. I don't want anybody to get confused with that. It's not the name of the line, it's the variable we literally created. We assigned this math to this variable. Okay? L-band, same thing. Average, same thing. Knowing me, I would have done them in the same order because I'm very OCD when it comes to some of this. Alright, if in a chart equals false, so if this information is not in a chart, how are we going to handle it? And basically, then they're just going to give you some values. So if in a chart equals false, then begin another if statement. And that if statement says if the U band, the upper band, is greater than or less than the lower band, then %b will equal what they have here. Just another mathematical equation. Again, we don't have to worry about that math. If you were to ever mess it up, you would just open the Bollinger Band file, copy it, and paste it back into yours. I mean, worst case scenario, right? If that's not the case, okay, and it does not equal that math, then we're going to say %b equals 0. Then we end our statement with a semicolon. You're going to find that the semicolons are at the end of almost everything, except for in this case, you see how it's not present there. And that's just the way they handle an if, then, else statement, it's called. Here's your if, here's your then, and there's your else. At the same time, they're going to plot %b, which they now have a value in %b. It's either going to be this, or it's going to be 0. And then they give it a name. Again, they're not giving it a color or a line thickness. Alright, I'm going to have to show you some of mine just to feel better about all this, because I feel like this is kind of like it's all correct, but it's like old English. You can still use it, it works, but it's not the most modern way to do it, and you're not getting the most bang out of your buck. Alright, here's our little note. Color plot floor in grid applications if color %b input is true. Alright, so again, if this is set to true, I told you we would come back to this. If that is true, and you don't have to put equals true here. If you're just putting it as it is, you're already insinuating that it's true. Because it is, you know. If a house is a house, well, it is. It's true. Then we're going to do a switch case. What is a switch case? This is another thing in programming. I should probably be teaching you program one thing at a time, but I'm walking through all of this to let you know that there is nothing you can't handle. It all can be explained. We can right click every last bit of it if we wanted to. Would it take a while? Yes. But would you be teaching yourself something that is really going to be useful? Absolutely. And so in a way, I used to think of these as if-then statements. They are not. Okay. What they are instead is they're like they're almost like an if-then statement. Okay. You can have as many cases almost as you need. I've never used more than 10 at a time. But they're for those situations that could have more than one outcome. So if color %b, then switch %b, begin case less than 0. In other words, if it is less than 0, this is going to be your color. If it's less than 0.5, less than or equal to 1, greater than 1. Okay? Now, we can get into why there's better ways to do that, but for right now, again, it's like old English. It does work. Lastly, the very last part of this code is where you're going to put alerts for anything. You're going to design it very much in a similar fashion. If alert enabled, meaning if they right-clicked, they went into that menu. See if we can get away with it. Let's stick to this one. Studies. edit studies, and see how it says alert no, yes, no, no, yes, no, and no. And you can change that status. You can do this in multiple ways, mind you. Best way for me is just to come here, go to customize, go to alerts, enable alert, and then make it the way you want it. Custom settings, global messaging preferences, which you can configure. You can get this thing to send you text messages. That's another video. I'm sure we've already passed our time for today, but I hope this is helpful. So if that is enabled and the displacement is less than or equal to 0, then begin. If candle price crosses over the left band, in other words, if your price action, like it did right here, goes over the upper band, or excuse me, crosses over the lower band, ooh, aren't we fancy, crosses over the lower band like it did here, and in some cases maybe here, then they want to know price. This is very straightforward. Then alert, price crossing over lower price band. You can actually get your computer to talk. In your message settings, you can set the voice to on, and it will actually say this when you're not even next to your computer. You'll hear it. That's one of the greater things about using easy language with TradeStation. Else, if candle price crosses under upper band, same thing, coming from the top into it, and let us know. So it just depends on what kind of trader are you. Are you going with the trend, or you counter trend? That's up to you. That's, completely up to the individual trader. Now, we went through over most of this, I'm already tripping over myself, biting my tongue, and needing a drink of water, but I hope that some of this made sense to you. What I need you to do, and I will help, the next video we'll hit something, maybe a couple things that are easy. I mean, we just literally took a trip throughout 75 lines of code that you may have never ever seen in your life. So it's a success no matter how you look at this. The thing to take from it is really that the best way to do this for a beginner isn't going to be just with an empty slate. Oh, let's create a new indicator. I'm going to name it U. Short name U. Notes U. No template, and we want it available for anything and everything. Okay, the best way is, I don't think, is to come in here and try to explain every little thing that you need to do. However, it is a great way to review. So what we're going to do is one line note. Hi, Mom. It's been a while. How are you? Alright. Multiple lines. Using those brackets, you can do just that. Next. A lot of the times, you can put little notes at the top, little notes at the bottom. You can let yourself know what version of the code it is, perhaps even too. You're going to need inputs. Inputs are those things that, well, hey, we can right click and find the definition of, but those are going to be those variables that people can change. Colors, a lot of times it's going to be numbers, but it's also going to be like a high, low, open, or close to get our mathematical readings on. Or are you wanting your average to be based on the high, or you want it to be based on the close? You notice how these words are lighting up because they're recognized by the computer, and therefore are able to do more than just be code. They can link to other bigger functions and other man, so much. There's so many things. We're going to learn how to import things from these data providers right here at some point. We've got alerts at the bottom. Prior to alerts, we're generally going to go ahead and well, I'm not just going to say that we have if-then statements, but we're definitely going to do some plotting. Okay, so you're going to have plot 1, and like I said, they are sequential. Okay. There's a lot, but you know, when you really look at it and you break it down, this is essentially what we were going to be trying to follow. It's like writing music. You know, you're going to have your intro, your choruses, your bodies, your outro, and you're done. Well, you wish. You wish it was that easy. And again, these can be difficult too, but they don't have to be. Let me give you a quick example. I'm not really going to show it to you, but as we leave, I'm going to mention the chart trader, something I love, right? As a small cap trader, I love this thing because you can hit that one button, close. Yes, it's a market order, but if you're up well over what you expected to be, then you hit this baby during normal working hours. Mind you, I don't think it works after hours, but you hit that and you're out. No worries, okay? You're not sitting there all day. Now, if volume is so dried up that there's nothing there and it's hard to get out, well, then that's another story. Just one of the many things we have to go over in time. But this chart trader, it has, I believe, 26,000 lines of code. Okay? That's intimidating, yes. But there's also a lot here I don't need. I could cut out half of that just by getting rid of this place order, because I still like to place my orders from up top, even though it can be a pain too. My point is, yes, it can get as complicated as you want it to. What I'm going to try to do is teach you how to slim those lines of code and at the same time stick to the framework that we were showing you here to make indicators that aren't going to just give you a headache day in and day out. We didn't use timers. We didn't use any providers today. You know, this we could go for hours on, and I would love to. I just need a better feedback from the audience so I kind of know which directions they want to go. But for now, I'm going to leave you with this. It's a crazy first intro into easy language. Let's go to our BBs. Okay? But it's 75 lines of code that can probably be shortened down even more. And yes, it can get it to talk. I wish this was market hours were open. If we went to futures, we might be able to work something out, but I don't really have that planned right now. With that, let me know what you think. I can trim it down. We can make it more monotone and boring. But frankly, I think what we should do is just keep it kind of where it's at. Go to another indicator and see how they did it. And then I'll mention if we've already done that before, if this is something new, you know, and go with that kind of style. We're not going to be doing Fibonacci's in day one for you know, for a while. We won't be doing that. But we're going to get to plotting, which is these lines, by the way. I don't know if I got specific enough, but it's definitely these lines, and they adjust in value. Okay. Up here is one of my fibs. It's an auto fib just based on the previous day's close and where price action is right now. So just quickly here, what it's doing is basing it right here would be the close, which it looks like it was if you look at that little green dash, and that was at the end of 9/16. Okay, so all through pre-market you could see that price action. Well, we just can't get a break on that line. 1, 2, 3, there we go. And so this was the low of the day at the time, and it follows the low of day and stays steady on this side, and then gives you a calculation between the two. So this white line's a 50% retracement. Okay, these are all fib lines. 50 is not necessarily fib, but let's not get into that right now. It is definitely a important marker. So here we had a rebound on the fib, and that was oftentimes on a stock that's already down at that time a decent place to short. But enough about strategy. This is just showing you what you can do with easy language. Guys, let me know. definitely have ways we can go with this. So next time we probably will be looking at moving averages, and we may work with timers. There is some cool things you can do. So without delaying any further, let me let you go for now, and I'll see you next time. Hopefully you like, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do. Thank you.